billion-dollar failure formula. Picture this. A company has just $5,000 left in the bank. The problem? They have a fuel bill for $24,000 that they absolutely cannot pay. Bankruptcy isn't just knocking on the door. It's about to kick it clean off the hinges. The founder, a guy who got a C on the college paper that outlined this very company, is completely out of options. So he does the one thing no business school on earth would ever advise. He flies to Las Vegas, takes the company's last $5,000, and puts it all on a blackjack table. This sounds like the end of the story, right? A final, desperate, and frankly foolish act before the whole thing collapses. But it wasn't. That night, Fred Smith turned that $5,000 into $27,000. Just enough to pay the fuel bill and keep his company, FedEx, alive for one more week. That week was all he needed. Soon after, he secured another $11 million in funding. So what separates a catastrophic failure that buries a company from one that becomes a legendary success story? It's not just dumb luck, it's a formula that turns devastating losses into billion-dollar wins. And that's what we're breaking down today. We're all taught to fear failure. We see it as the absolute opposite of success. But what if I told you that for the world's most successful entrepreneurs, failure wasn't an obstacle, but the very fuel for their climb? They didn't just survive failure, they weaponized it. They followed a blueprint, a kind of recipe for incredible comebacks. It's the billion-dollar failure formula, and it has 3 critical ingredients that can turn rock bottom into a launch pad. First things first, the idea of an overnight success is a complete and total myth. Behind every celebrated innovator is a graveyard of bad ideas, brutal rejections, and gut-wrenching mistakes. We see the empire, but we don't see the thousands of battles they lost to build it. We see Colonel Sanders' smiling face on a bucket of chicken, but we don't see the man who was rejected over 1,000 times before a single person would franchise his recipe. He started this journey in his 60s, an age when most people are thinking about retiring. We read about Arianna Huffington, the media mogul who sold the Huffington Post for a fortune. But we don't hear about the author whose second book was rejected by 36 different publishers. She faced so much rejection that she had to take out a personal bank loan just to keep herself afloat while she pitched her work. Or how about Walt Disney? A man once fired from a newspaper for supposedly lacking imagination and good ideas. Before he could get funding for his vision of a theme park, he was reportedly turned down over 300 times. These aren't just feel-good anecdotes, they're evidence. Evidence that the path to massive success is paved with the bricks of failure. These titans of industry didn't just get lucky, they understood the first ingredient of the formula. Failure is not a verdict, it's data. The first and maybe the most crucial ingredient in the failure formula is treating every single setback as an information-gathering mission. When most people face rejection, they feel shame. But when these entrepreneurs face rejection, they get curious. Failure becomes a data mine. Take Bill Gates. Long before Microsoft, he and Paul Allen started a company called Trafo Data. Their idea was to build a device that could read and analyze traffic data. It was a brilliant concept, but when they went to demo it for a potential client, the machine completely failed to work. It was a total disaster, and the business eventually shut down at a net loss. But that failure was priceless. It was a masterclass in hardware, software, and what the market actually wants. The lessons from Trafo Data, especially that software was the real future, led directly to the creation of Microsoft. The failure wasn't the end. It was the training ground. It's the same story with Steve Jobs. When he was forced out of Apple in 1985, it was a monumental public humiliation. He was kicked out of the company he built in his garage. But that period in exile wasn't a waste. Jobs started a new company, NEXT, and bought a small graphics company that would become Pixar. That experience taught him lessons about management and software that he never would have learned inside Apple. So when a struggling Apple acquired Next in 1996, Jobs didn't just return as the founder. He came back as a seasoned leader with a new perspective that gave us the iMac, the iPod, and the iPhone, turning Apple into the most valuable company in the world. He treated his biggest defeat as his most valuable lesson. Having data is useless if you don't have the will to use it. And that brings us to the second ingredient, the resilience engine. This is that relentless, almost stubborn persistence to keep going when every single sign is telling you to quit. It's more than just hard work. It's a deep, unwavering belief in your mission that defies logic. No one embodies this more than Jamie Kern-Lima, the founder of IT Cosmetics. After leaving her job as a news anchor, she started the company in her living room to create makeup for people with skin conditions like her own rosacea. For 3 straight years, she and her husband faced what she calls crazy, painful rejection. They were told no by countless retailers and investors. At one point, a male investor told her he was passing because he didn't think women would buy makeup from someone with her body and weight. They were down to less than $1,000 in their bank account. After hundreds of rejections, she finally got a 10-minute slot on QVC. And in that moment, she did something unheard of. She wiped the makeup off her own face on live television, showing her redness to prove how well her product actually worked. By the end of the segment, they had sold out completely. That resilience eventually led to her selling the company to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion in cash. Her persistence wasn't just about enduring. It was about believing in her why so much that all those no's just became fuel. This is the same fire that powered Soichiro Honda. His first attempt at creating a piston ring was rejected by Toyota. He was ridiculed, but instead of quitting, he went back to school to perfect his design. He finally got a contract only to have his factory bombed twice during World War II. After the bombings, an earthquake destroyed what little was left. He had absolutely nothing. But in post-war Japan, he saw a need for cheap transportation. He started by attaching small engines to bicycles. That simple idea became the Honda Motor Company, which grew into a global automotive giant. His story teaches us that resilience isn't about surviving one failure, but having the guts to rebuild from total devastation, over and over again. What's the biggest failure you've ever learned from? It doesn't have to be $1 billion company. It could be anything. Share it in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you're getting value from this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're decoding more formulas for success in the weeks to come. The final ingredient is the most daring of all, the calculated leap of faith. This is where vision and risk-taking collide. It's the ability to see a future that nobody else does, and to make bold, sometimes seemingly insane, moves to make it happen. This brings us right back to Fred Smith and FedEx. His idea for an overnight delivery service was so out there that his Yale professor famously gave the paper describing it a C grade. When rising fuel costs put the company on the brink of collapse, his trip to Vegas wasn't just a wild gamble. It was a profound act of belief. He later said, "I was very committed to the people that had signed on with me. And if we were going to go down, we were going to go down with a fight." He wasn't just betting on the cards. He was betting on his vision. That leap of faith saved the company and allowed it to become an $85 billion global titan. This same unwavering vision drove Walt Disney. After his first animation company went bankrupt, he was so broke he reportedly survived by eating beans. When he came up with the idea for Disneyland, he was rejected by over 300 financiers who thought the concept of a theme park was absurd. The banks couldn't see it. The experts couldn't see it. But Disney could. He eventually had to take out a loan against his own life insurance to get the project started. His leap of faith wasn't blind. It was fueled by a vision so clear and so powerful that it withstood hundreds of rejections to create what we now know as the happiest place on Earth. So what happens when you ignore this formula? You become a cautionary tale. Just think of Blockbuster or Kodak. Their failures weren't because of one single bad decision, but because they fundamentally misunderstood all three ingredients. Blockbuster saw Netflix coming. They had every opportunity to adapt, but they were too comfortable, too addicted to their late fee model to take the necessary leap of faith and innovate. They completely lacked the vision. Kodak's story is even more tragic. They invented the first digital camera back in 1975, but buried the technology because they were terrified it would hurt their profitable film business. Think about that. They had the data. They literally invented the future, but they refused to use it. They lacked the courage to disrupt themselves. Both companies failed not because they hit a roadblock, but because they refused to pivot. They ignored the data, lacked the resilience to change, and were too scared to take a calculated leap into the unknown. The billion-dollar failure formula isn't magic. It's a pattern. First, you mine your failures for data, treating every mistake as a lesson. Second, you power your journey with a resilient engine of persistence, driven by a why that can't be broken. And third, you take calculated leaps of faith, guided by a crystal-clear vision of what's possible. From Colonel Sanders being told no over 1,000 times to Jamie Kern Lima crying in her car after yet another rejection, the lesson is clear. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone on the path to it. It's not about whether you get knocked down. It's about what you do with the data from the fall. It's about whether you have the resilience to get back up. And it's about having the courage to take a leap even when no one else believes in you. That is the formula that turns failure into a fortune.